So in this video I played Batman Arkham City in 2023 for the first time. I'll be giving you an overall review to let everyone know if it's still worth playing 12 years later. This is the second release in the Arkham series. If you didn't know, I'm playing through and reviewing each game in the series for the first time, with the video before this of course being Arkham Asylum. If you go on to enjoy this review, then let me know by tapping that like button down below, and if you like story games then that's what this channel is all about. I have various reviews on an array of games. Without further ado, let's jump into Batman Arkham City, starting off with the gameplay. Now, as seen in Arkham Asylum, what made that game so revolutionary was the combat, and how it was one of the first free-flow combat systems implemented into a video game, and was just so ahead of its time. In terms of this game and the rest of the series in general, the combat is obviously similar, but just refined and improved on in Arkham City. Compared to Asylum, you can feel it being way smoother and responsive, as well as there being a lot more to experiment with in terms of moves and skills. The animations make it seem so engaging, whilst it may have felt more realistic before in terms of the movement, where you had to be more accurate when locking on, and you actually had to stand a lot closer to an enemy to hit them. I feel like with this game being more forgiving and less realistic, it makes it way more fun, and a lot more to implement into fights as they let Batman have more range. And at the end of the day, it's a superhero game, so I'm sure no one's expecting the most realistic movement and reach. I knew that there wasn't going to be a giant overhaul in combat, but just a lot of improvement to what's already been there. Nothing feels brand new, and small aspects that I wasn't the biggest fan of in the game before, they are still here and they are the same. For example, the ground takedown, which sorts of takes the momentum away and slows the pace of the combat a bit, and when you do perform a takedown, it's a bit longer than I would have liked, and with a bunch of enemies and how fast the action really is, you sort of need to save the most amount of time possible. This ground takedown could be sped up a bit or implemented differently. You may notice the combat feeling a lot more brutal, and Batman acting a lot stronger, which makes sense. In terms of moves and finishes, there's so much variety and ruthless animations that make it so unique. Another reason as to why the less realistic combat helps is also seen in the combos that you can build up over time with each uninterrupted strike. It just seems a lot easier to build up that sequence very quickly, and then you can get a critical strike, which is always so fun to do. The combos of course allow for very unique moves and animations, as I mentioned. There's more gadgets added to the usual set we had in the Asylum. If you don't know, these go by the explosive gel, various battle rangs, the grapple, line launcher, etc. It always feels so fun to traverse through this giant city, as we now have a lot more freedom to explore. I'll talk more about this later on. We now have the new gadgets, such as the electrical charge, which activates power to a chargeable machine, or to destroy an object or unblock an area, for example. It's very useful and allows for more variety in escaping and unlocking new places, as well as them being able to take down other enemies, to promote stealth a bit more than they did in the last game, where there was minimal features to silently escape or take someone down. We now have smoke bombs that burst out a puff of smoke to disorientate the enemy and allow you to come out and take them down, which is really helpful. Though in terms of the base stealth combat, it's pretty much the same. Silent takedown as you approach someone from behind. Hopefully later on in the series they start to implement different takedowns for stealth, maybe more integration of the actual environment. There's a mine detonator that works in a similar way to the explosive gel. Instead you can detonate mines to unlock an area or item, allowing for more interaction. Mixed with combat, there seem to have been a lot more puzzles in this game, but also having a good amount of variety on them. They don't feel repetitive in any way, and also not too frustrating, as that would have taken it down a lot. Overall, they switch up the pace of the game and are fairly easy to do. The boss fights are also a really good part of this game. I found them all to be very diverse, with them catering to different play styles, the use of stealth, fast-paced combat, timing, the use of the environment, etc. Some are more challenging than others, and once you've played it once you'll most likely just breeze through it again. Definitely an improvement once again from the Asylum, and arguably the best part of this game. I say arguably because there's another strong aspect of Arkham City that makes the game so good, and that's of course the story. Now, the story is way more complex than the Asylum, and a lot of this is to do with the huge amount of villains you encounter. This doesn't mean it's hard to follow in any way, as Batman meets with one villain and then moves on to the next, and it just keeps on going. He tries to stop their plan and take them down to ease his mission, but this also means that there's lots of subplots that branch out, just building up this incredible plot, meaning it keeps on branching out and becomes bigger as you progress, which feels like one giant chaotic battle that Batman takes on, and no matter matter what happens to him, he is determined to push through. You'd think that it might become too much of a mess and overwhelming, but the way they pace the story and how you build up to each antagonist you encounter and try to take down them, overall they did it really well, which is usually quite difficult to do. I loved every single villain in the game, and it just blew me away how many they could cram into the story, and it does feel like a comic book. The way they're all designed and built up, each one feels so unique and adds to the huge variety in the game. They also open the story in one of the best ways possible, as you start off as Bruce Wayne, who instantly gets captured as he's protesting about Arkham City. Arkham City is basically a run-down area of Gotham, with the use of detaining prisoners and residents of the city. In other words, a giant prison. With it being a city, it's way bigger than the area of the asylum you played in before, and has a much darker feeling when I played, with the entire isolated area filled with prisoners and dangerous attackers, with Batman's main goal of uncovering the secret plan by the person who controls Arkham City, Hugo Strange. His main plan is to execute Protocol 10, meaning he's threatening to kill all the citizens of Gotham. Therefore, Batman has to explore and navigate through this dangerous city to end it all under a strict time constraint. This is where Batman begins to meet with the huge list of antagonists, as I mentioned. There's of course the Joker and Harley Quinn, Penguin, Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, Mad Hatter, the Clayface, the Riddler, and Victor Zsasz. So, not that many. Each having their own unique encounter and plan to cause harm to the city and stop Batman. As you try to stop Protocol 10 from happening, Batman believes Joker knows the truth behind it, and that's where he finds out that the unstable Titan formula has mutated into Joker's blood, making him very sick, and he asks Batman to help him, otherwise he'll poison Batman himself and the citizens of Gotham. Out of all the villains, the main ones would definitely be the Joker and Hugo Strange, as they are the two main leaders of it all, and they work so well as them. They urge to try and stop them as the time becomes increasingly closer. You do actually feel that pressure, especially with the events of the game all happening over the course of one single night, just like in Asylum, which makes it even better and fast paced, but not too rushed so that it becomes messy and forced. And lastly, there's even more side characters to Batman himself, the main one being Catwoman, who you play as for a good bit and also has her own side story as a DLC. It seems a bit strange as she doesn't have an awful amount of screen time, but for some reason you get to play and explore as her. I'm not really complaining though, as it was fun to switch to another character, but I wouldn't say it's overly needed in this game. She could have just popped up in some cutscenes and that would have been fine. And I didn't mention it in the gameplay, but her combat is slightly different in terms of visuals, with slick cat-like animations, much faster paced when striking, and she can obviously use her whip to pull enemies towards her, which was really fun. Then when you stealthily crouch walk, she doesn't actually crouch, instead she walks around like a cat on all fours, and she can also crawl on the ceilings to then pounce onto an enemy with such a cool satisfying takedown. The same with the ground takedowns, rather than just one quick choke movement like Batman. She actually gets on top of the opponent and slams them to the ground or chokes them. Overall, I didn't mind playing as her, I just hope she gets some more involvement in the future. And overall, I would definitely say Batman Arkham City is worth playing in 2023. If you enjoyed Asylum, then you'll for sure enjoy this as well. It improves on a lot of areas. There's still some aspects that stayed the same, and I'm sure will be upgraded in the later games. But overall, I had an amazing experience, and I must say that the story is what makes this game for me. The endless list of villains you meet one after the other, all having their own unique encounter and different scheme. And of course, the gameplay will always be great as long as they don't remove anything, I would say. It seems like they just refine it every time and implement small new features to make it better each time. If you did enjoy this review of Batman Arkham City in 2023, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you enjoy story games, then I have various reviews on a bunch of games, with a playlist of a series I've done in the description. Thank you for watching until the very end, and this does mean that Arkham Origins is up next, which I'm excited for. Until then, bye bye.